Happy Thursday and welcome to today's very special episode of Tech Bites. I'm back from vacation. I'm going to shave this beard off, but I am joined by one of the best here at Veeam, Lady Megatron, Megan Schiller. How are you doing today?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Hey, I'm doing great. And, Megan, you and I have been working all year, by the way, behind the scenes on this series of Tech Bites topics. And we're really happy to be teamed up. And I kind of, muscled her into the show as she said she would do it. So I'm super grateful for you joining me here today, Lady Megatron. All right.
Absolutely.
Megan and I both are in Central Ohio, along with our producer Jeffrey and our other producer Felicia in Texas. But we want to know where you're from. I was told today that the map is back, and we're going to be lighting up the map as we go through the show, and that rhymes on Thursdays. That's how we roll. I could make that work too if I wanted to. But we're going to talk about a really important topic today, the skills gap with the small and medium business. So, Megan, before we jump into the content, what kind of led us to thinking about adding a topic of the skills gap?
Well, we've done a good amount of research this year, particularly with Data Print Trends Protection Report on kind of how small businesses are affected in the IT space. There's a lot of changes happening right now. It's a very fast-moving industry. And as people leave, that can often create gaps and kind of skill issues that small businesses may have a different time addressing than like an enterprise counterpart.
Yeah, and I think that small businesses and medium businesses of all types and private sector, public sector, they're very different from the size and shape and some of the different parameters. But technology is an incredible common language, I think, that we can work with. So that's kind of our set here for our agenda. So let's jump into the slides. And what we're going to do here real quick is give you some practical tips on the skill gap and how to navigate it. So let's first start out with a look. Jeffrey, if you could pull in the share feed, there it is. We're going to start here with this, and I want to also let you know where we are on the journey. So earlier in the year, the 5 easy tips for the SMB cyber resiliency, that's available for replay on the Veeam YouTube Tech Bytes playlist, right? So Kirsten and I walked through a couple of different really easy resiliency tips that you can get started with. And then the second show was the ABCs of KPIs for the SMBs. That one is also available for replay. And here we are talking skills gap. And Megan, I'll throw you kind of a question that we didn't practice, but what are we going to do next? We got a lot more year left. Are we going to do another show or two? We've got room for it on this screen.
Yes, I believe we have another kind of SMB themed Tech Bites in July, and then I believe we might have one slated for September. If my memory serves, though, I'm on the spot right now, so we'll see how that goes.
I'm a few days back from vacation, so you're doing better than me. So I appreciate it. But we are planning to have this journey, and then probably we'll take all of these and maybe some highlights of that and share that through the year. But the small medium business, super important to Veeam, and hopefully everyone can benefit from some of these. And by the way, we've got several streams open. I've got 2 of them. I'm looking at YouTube and LinkedIn concurrently here. We're also live on Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X, and the other one, which I think is Facebook, quadcasting here. I've got Felicia. She can help relay in any questions or comments. Please do. Please relay those through, because I love kind of engaging with the audience. So we're looking at them. But let's also kind of take a look at the problem. And I think the problem, we haven't used the visual here of Michelle. We have a nickname for her, this picture here. But I'll throw this over to you as a question, Megan. What is the problem with the skills gap today?
Well, as you can see from the picture, there's no problem. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
I think the problem mostly just comes down to finances and staffing, 2 things that small and medium businesses don't have the same access to. And so if you only have 1 or 2 people on your team that do a certain role and one of them leaves, that can be really, really difficult for a small business to kind of make up that loss of productivity.
I think that is very accurate. I look at my own personal experience. I go back a few years before Veeam. I helped out one organization, and truly, ultra dependent on individuals for these types of things. And I think that like talent acquisition and then talent retention. So this is me talking as a people manager now. It's really important to really work to keep your best people, but also keep them happy, right? Because it's one thing to you can have people sitting around collecting paychecks, but then also to keep them engaged and enriched and happy. So as a people manager, that's kind of tough. And if we're thinking about small business technology teams, I mean that's not unheard of to be a army of one, two, three, maybe more people. These are small groups. I think is that a fair assessment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And having the right skills in the right place at the right time is crucial. And if even one of those pieces kind of goes missing, there can be so many like negative side effects felt company-wide from that loss of just a person who knows what they're doing and is good at their job.
And I think a lot of the industry is, resetting. I think there was a lot of job changes, maybe the early part of this decade, job losses as well. So, there's a lot of just industry change. And I think there's also a risk of institutional knowledge being a gap. And that's actually one of the harder things to train on somebody. It's one thing to say, yeah, I know Veeam, I know storage, and I can function in the cloud, but do you know your business, right? So that's also
Mhm.
a very important kind of angle to it. All right, so what I
Mhm.
want to do now, Megan, is I'm going to walk through a couple of different things that we can give the audience some practical tips with some Veeam tips as well as some perspective tips. But I just got word that the map is ready. So let's take a look at that real quick. And in the US, we have Ohio and Texas represented. We got Mexico, Maryland. I'll be there next month for vacation. Looking forward to that. California, looking good. Let's head over to South America. We've got Brazil and Chile. I will be going to Chile for the first time in South America this year for the Veeam
Ooh.
Tour, which reminder to everyone around the world, the Veeam tours are getting ready to be launched in your audience, in your market. So I'm going to Santiago and Buenos Aires. Looking forward to that. First time to Chile for El Ricatron. Let's go over to Europe. We've got Italy, Germany, and Spain, as well as Morocco, which is Africa, but very close on the same shot of the map here. I just spent 2 weeks in Italy. It was great. I really enjoyed that. So welcome everyone across all the streams. Let us know where you're from. Felicia and Jeffrey are doing their best to relay these through. I like kind of working it up. This is fun. All right, so let's talk about some of the resources. Now, if you've been on some of these types of shows before, you can see I'm counting it down. Start first with user groups, and I have a twist here. User groups, I think there's also a great opportunity for you to find talent and experts there. User groups are a great place where people go to learn something, but it's also a great place to find other experts. So if you're in the business of trying to find somebody who knows something, check those out. And I'm going to put this as a question to you, Megan. Did you know? I'm going to look through all these different user groups across the world. Did you know that we had all of these online user groups for Veeam at the Veeam Community Hub?
I did not. I had no clue. That's wonderful news.
It is. And, a lot of people don't know this. And so, Felicia, if you could push out a link to community.veeam.com out on the streams to check this out. And it's really important to note that these user groups are in the local languages, right? So if I were to pick VUG France, for example, they're going to be dialoguing, guess what, in French. Now, I can always translate and see what's going on. In fact, then you'll see here, for example, there's going to be a user group meetup. Technically, in Monaco, they speak French there, so that makes sense. But it's going to be a week from today, for example. So if you wanted to engage in some of these around the world, you can. I know today in the USA, there's one in Minneapolis happening. For example, that's happening actually in like an hour or two. So that's good stuff. So if you're wanting to do stuff, especially with Veeam, really check out these user groups, especially the ones around the world. You can engage in the local language. Even APJ, we've got some happening in China even, and that's in Chinese. So it's funny, the browser didn't even try to translate that, but I know it could if it was asked. But that's cool. So that's our first resource that I wanted to share with everyone. Now, the next one is a special one. Veeam University. So user groups are one thing. But when it comes to product training, I think, Megan, there's a real challenge. A lot of people, where do they start on their product training? I mean, it might be untenable. Okay, I need to go take a 3-day class, a 5-day class for the SMB. They might not have the budget. They might not have the time. I think product training is a real gap.
Absolutely. And IT skills are so in demand that people who are trained in those things often come with like a very heavy price tag. So it can be hard for SMBs to have access to people with that level of training and skill just organically.
Now, when you say organically, I mean that implies to me that it's based off of experience. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people who've been in the industry for a while often kind of aim themselves toward enterprise markets, and it can be hard for SMBs to compete with that just financially and then as well as like the staffing and opportunities they have for those people. So if
Mhm.
you're able to access training like that and educate yourself, I think you have a much better chance of entering the space.
So I think if I'm going to put my IT, oh, I don't have my hat within reach. I do have a hat I can put on, but um, if I would put my IT persona hat on for a second, I think the training burden would really align to getting what you need and not really much more. Let me give everyone an example. How many of you watching this stream have sat through a course of a product that you use, a proper training course? And I've been through it where they talk about all these other different things, but you might only use, half of the course outline. Is that half that's really relevant and half that's not? So think about that. And same thing, that's really important when you go into like certification, when you go to take the test. I remember showing my age, but basically I remember when I would go get like my VMware certification, they had a lot of questions around NFS. I'm like, I don't use NFS. I use block storage, right? I still passed the test, which was good. But the thought is organizations who only need this type of areas of a product trained on, or at least knowledge on, it becomes kind of a challenge. And so what I want to do is introduce everyone to Veeam University. So Veeam University is a free training resource that we've had. Gosh, Megan, as long as I've been around here, I feel like we've had that. Is that about right for you too?
I've been here less time than you, so for sure for me.
Yeah, exactly. So we had something that wasn't super Veemy before, but basically, I will also say that one of the things that we started doing here is to kind of put the customer onboarding kind of central to that experience here. And I think that's really important as well, because it's like, if you think about the SMB, if someone did leave, well, then maybe today I have to learn Veeam. I'm in charge of it. So here's a resource that you can consume this, and I love this, the certificate, right? So that you've completed the certificate as well. And you can, even in the SMB, this is actually a very good vehicle to give back to your management. Look, hey, I'm making sure our data is protected. I've gone through this free course, and that might be the right amount of content for the small and medium business, because this does give an overview tour of the product. It's not our engineering level certification. That is a different one, right? And this is free. I should also really, really highlight that this is all free. But we have I guess I'd call it a next level certification with the Veeam Certified Engineer credential. And the one thing about the Veeam Certified Engineer, oh, hi, Kirsten. There's a video that'll tell you about it. But one thing about the Veeam Certified Engineer is that's targeted towards enterprise deployments. I mean, it would be knowledge that works in the SMB, but I guess where I'm trying to go with this, Megan, is this is a really good place to start.
Absolutely.
Now, when I look at the Veeam University product, I feel like the one good thing that I think organizations like small and medium businesses can benefit from this is that it's at your own pace. Okay, that's probably the biggest challenge, I think, is carving out the time, because this is online, again, self-paced. I mean, you might want to allocate an hour or two, but you don't need to for each part of your journey, but you don't have to give all day, all week.
Mhm.
And time is a precious commodity, I think, with the small and medium business.
Yeah, especially if they only have a few people on hand, not having to shut down the whole department to take a training course, probably a good goal.
Indeed. And back to the view with Michelle, everything's fine. And chances are something is on fire or needs immediate attention. So Veeam University or other products you use, that's our second practical tip for the small medium business. Now here, this is a broad stroke of advice. Allocate something to cybersecurity. Now, I think the small and medium business, bold statement here, they almost need to think more about cybersecurity than the enterprise, Megan, because they probably don't have a big CISO office with a cybersecurity team. I think it just kind of falls alongside the IT admin. It's another thing that they're responsible for. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes there's this thought that maybe a small business won't be targeted as much by like ransomware or bad actors because they wouldn't have as much to give as an enterprise. But we've done research that shows this is not the case. They're targeted exactly the same as an enterprise business. And so focusing on kind of protecting their data is absolutely a very important goal.
So a couple of resources to highlight: the Veeam ransomware trends report, which just was released earlier this month, and Veeam on the Veeam data protection trends, which was that January or the first quarter of the
It
year?
was January, and we
Yeah.
came out with an executive summary that was just targeted towards small and medium businesses a little later on in the spring.
And we can find all of those at veeam.com. Just keep looking, you'll find it, I promise. And then the other side of the cybersecurity kind of approach here is this is really serious in the sense of user training is very important. And I'm going to scope it to the admins right now, but if you're the all-in-one IT person, I would challenge that every employee is part of the cybersecurity process, right? So if you think about how the worst things in cybersecurity happen, ransomware, et cetera, it usually starts from a phish email that was clicked on and deployed a payload, or remote access not done very well, or updates patches not done very well. So if you really want to tackle something as an IT pro, again, think of Michelle with everything on fire, you should really think about patching, remote access, and then phish training. And there's even a really good free phish training resource out there, which the name is escaping me at the time, but I'll see if I can find it here in a second. But those of you who are crisp on the budget know which one I'm talking about, but it just draw a blank. It might be KnowBe4, but it's the other one, if not, that has a free offering as well. So allocate something to cybersecurity. And then the other thing I'll highlight about cybersecurity is the Veeam cybersecurity space, which is actually in the mix of the user groups. So if you go to the list of all those user groups we were talking about, one of the things that you'll see here is we have a couple of leaders like Marco, for example, who is talking about the ransomware kill chain and the MITRE attack framework and zero trust data resilience. Those are topics above and beyond Veeam. Or here's one where Stabs is sharing a point about some product vulnerabilities with VMware vCenter server. We have some Veeam security stuff we're sharing as well. Here's the next one from Dips about PHP, which is a very common open source thing, and that's a 9.8, which is a big one, right? It's kind of up there with the Log4j type of thing. So all of these different cybersecurity topics are really important, and my recommendation to everyone is just be aware. So I want to let you know we've made the Veeam cybersecurity space where we can talk about this, right? And here's the just, again, it's more than just Veeam, which I really like here. The cybersecurity space talks about all of the different cybersecurity things, but also a lot of the products that everyone uses, right? And so in these threads, I've skimmed down here a little bit over a month now, and there's definitely some good Veeam stuff in here, but like the one that I wanted to highlight was like here's one from networking, Palo Alto. So it's like just being aware. Like if you're this one, this is what I wanted. There was a ransomware advisory, right? So Dips shared this one, right? These types of things are really valuable. So if you want to have some good the XZ Linux tool, that's another one, for example. If you want to have good awareness, right? Just knowing what's going on. And so the thought is these experts are sharing their process in cybersecurity and the learnings they have, how to upgrade, all of that stuff. It's actually important, in my opinion, to share some of the learnings from cybersecurity. So my advice, tip number 3, is to allocate something to cybersecurity. So anything else you would add about cybersecurity, Megan?
I think you covered it all. Wonderful
Oh, it
job.
covered it all. I don't know about that. You're never done with cybersecurity. And one more, chat here. If you want to join, let us know where you're tuning in from. We are gonna go back to the map later in the episode. I got a couple more entries, but please indeed let us know where you're tuning in from. All right, number 4 on the list is this a tricky one, Megan? Prioritization. So I'm going to ask you a question. How
Okay.
does the SMB prioritize things when everything's on fire at once and I'm down a person or two? How does prioritization sit with the small and mid-sized business?
Is it fair to say to the best of their ability?
Well, we can try. We can
Yeah.
try to prioritize. I've actually heard a customer say that, by the way. We try.
Yeah.
And every one of us probably understand that, it's really hard to identify what's important, but I want to highlight that my professional advice is to identify the 1 or 2 systems that are the most important for your organization, and then get some product training on those, get some cybersecurity sense around those, making sure, hey, am I anywhere close to the best practices here? And that product training might lead to the cybersecurity training. And I'd love to think that Veeam is one of the most important things, because if something goes wrong, I need a way out of it. And that's where Veeam is really helpful. So keep that in mind, right? Prioritize the absolute systems that matter when we're in this absolute scramble, and then we have a chance here to really make a model of success and then build on that. And that's actually, in my opinion, Megan, one of the most underrated just practices. The thought is, okay, I might be overwhelmed with everything to do, everything's a mess, I'm quickly running off to put out the next fire. But if I want to intentionally allocate some time to get something better and get something right, take that as a model for success and then spread that to the rest of the business. And I think if you could start with the most important systems, or maybe start small to get a good model of success, something that's important but not the most important, get a model of success, try it to the rest of the business. I feel that's a good path to making many things better. Fair assessment?
I'd say so. And would that be a good opportunity to kind of like look into some automation and as a service opportunities for scaling?
Automation. So automation is super important if it makes sense. Let us know in the chat if you have an automation opportunity and an automation challenge that you want to tackle. The risk and reward for automation is hard, because I am not by any means a really good automation person. But I will say that one thing I want to highlight is that if you go over to over in another Veeam user group here, we have one called Automation Desk. And here's another community that can talk to how to do things like building, a report guide with PowerShell, Ansible, how to deploy things like that. This is really an interesting opportunity as well when it comes to automation. And I think if you have something that you do over and over and over and over and over, it might be a candidate for automation. So give that some thought. But you say, as a service, are you saying, Megan, that it's possible that we could just have something taken right off of our plate and we don't have to even do it?
Golly gee, I might just be saying that exact thing.
So from a definition, what does as a service mean? Let's start there.
That's an excellent question. So as far as I'm aware, as a service offerings are normally things that a provider can take care of for you. You can also bring in like MSPs, managed service providers, and they're just there if you don't really have the staff or you don't have the time or you don't want to allocate towards that department, where managed service providers are able to help with it.
Yeah, indeed. And so a managed service provider, we have a whole bunch of Veeam cloud service providers, but then also you could get into direct as a service or first party as a service. So I want to let everybody know that Veeam Data Cloud is out there, and there are now 3 services available with Veeam Data Cloud. Protection for, here we go, protection for Microsoft 365, Microsoft Azure, and Veeam Data Cloud Vault. And the thought here is, this is really attractive, Megan, because let's take Microsoft 365 data. I might walk in and talk to the small business. Yeah, we need to protect the data. That's great. But I have no time. I have no storage. I have no expertise in the cloud in this. And it's very possible that those are real challenges that the SMB has. But Veeam Data Cloud is a first party Veeam providing backup as a service for these services. And Veeam Data Cloud Vault, for example, is offsite backup storage. So the thought here is you can actually just get the outcome. This is a view of the dashboard. You can just get the outcome of having backup as a service without building the infrastructure. It's really attractive. And I think my favorite part about this, some top benefits are across the top here, but my favorite benefit here is that that's a backup infrastructure that you don't have to update, you don't have to maintain. You just get the outcome of protecting these workloads. So if you haven't checked it out, Veeam Data Cloud is a really attractive way for the small and medium business to get the outcome of these workloads protected without having to build these infrastructures. So pretty good stuff. All right, so those are the 5 tips, right, that go through the small and medium business tips to deal with the skills gap, because honestly, sometimes building things in the cloud is really a challenge. Any other kind of open-ended thoughts on the skills gap that we may have missed? You took notes. I didn't take notes, but anything we may have missed, Megan, today?
I think just kind of understanding that when it comes to small and medium businesses, a lot of times you're looking at either paying for an individual with experience or you're paying for a service provider or one of those as a service offerings to work for you. And so just prioritizing what's the best fit for your current company and situation.
Indeed. And I think that's super important. And I got a few more map entries. Thank you all for letting me know. Let's switch over to that. We have Idaho and Florida joining. Welcome. And then over in EMEA, we've added the UK. So thank you all for joining for today's show. So a couple of things I want to highlight before we wrap. Number 1, Veeam is still available. Veeam is going on. After Veeam, I took a vacation, came back with this beard. It'll be gone soon. Don't worry. But that's available for replay until the 15th of July. The Industry Insights show on Tuesday of next week is going to talk additionally about the ransomware trends report, going deep and wide across that. Don't want to miss that. No show for Tech Bites next week. We have a U.S. holiday on the 4th of July. And then the 11th of July, a week from that, will be the Veeam 100 show, simplifying Kubernetes. So you'll want to tune in for that. All right, Lady Megatron, thank you so much for joining me here today on the stream.
Thanks for having me. I had fun.
All right, it is fun. I love doing this. And thank you, Jeffrey and Felicia, our producers. I could not do that without them. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.